You're listening to a Brawl Network production, and this is Meanie's Bird Recap.
Can you feel that thing that's oozing out your doggone hands? That thing that's beating in your doggone chest right now. Can you feel it?
Win or lose, these guys will be here for you after every single game.
Do you think you're better than me?
Here are your hosts, Giovanni Hamilton, Conor Myles, and ECW original, the Blue Meanie.
Welcome to the Meanie's Birds recap on Eagles Brawl of the Brawl Network, powered by Manscaped, Fanatics, and DraftKings. Co-host Conor Myles here with my co-host Tyler Steege, as always. Our Eagles Brawl insider Ed Kracz was gracefully nice to join us tonight on this lovely loss of an evening. And you already know that our guy, Blue Meanie, the one and only Blue Meanie, hosting his show, and he's wearing his Joe Go Buck Yourself shirt.
Joe Buck.
That is absolutely what I want. That's the vibes I'm on tonight. There we go.
I'm full of sarcasm tonight, so
it's hard not to be.
That's good.
It's hard not to
have
be.
Sarcastic. We have to have a sarcastic episode.
This show's going to be one big Bronx cheer of a show, you know. But unfortunately, Giovanni's not here because he is physically sick, and we're figuratively sick.
Right. I was like, dang, Gio, the Eagles did you this dirty that they're going to make you miss the show. And he's like, I can't do it.
The biggest Eagle in the world was like, nah, I'm good. You know,
I'm going to use that personal time, take a night off.
Yeah.
So Gio is out, but there's a lot to talk about, guys, and we'll get to it. And Gio did have a question that we'll bring up on the show, but let's just start it off. I'm going to say it right now. Fire Doug Peterson. It's over. Cut the crap. It's done. Time to move on. When a chapter closes, a new chapter begins, and this chapter is coming to an end. I wholeheartedly believe it. What are we feeling, guys? Are we all in agreement that Doug Peterson's his time is up?
I don't know. I don't see how him and this team, him and the Eagles could coexist. Yeah, they made the playoffs every year, but every year was a little bit of a decline. 2017 they made it to the Super Bowl. Next year they made it to the divisional round, and then last year they get eliminated in the first round, and now they're not even going to make it. And I'm an Eagles fan through and through, of course. That's why we're doing the show and Die Hard and all that good stuff. But I was so at peace with them losing yesterday, because I knew if they won that game yesterday, it would just been they made the playoffs again. And the theory is you don't want to do a huge oversight on everything when you're making the playoffs. Like in baseball, if you're on a winning streak, you don't, point out, to players what they're doing wrong. You wait until you get that loss in there and you go, okay, now we got the loss out of the way. Okay, this is what you need to work on. But now that they've completely, they're the worst of the worst in the worst division. And now, they're in the worst division in football history. And they're the worst of that. And now it's the time where they have to, Jeff Lurie has to take oversight over his company, his team, his investment, and say, where are we going to be next year? And
sorry, I thought that you were wrapping up. It's a marriage. It's a marriage that it had its high, it had its peak, and that's Super Bowl. And we'll always be able to thank Doug for it. But I mean, this has been a long time coming. We've talked about it week after week. This isn't just this year. A lot of the issues were hidden because of those late season runs. And at some point, if you keep sweeping things under the rug, eventually it's going to surface. And it just seems like this year it finally happened. And I'm like you said, I mean, I as an Eagles fan, I have never been as okay as seeing them lose to the Cowboys as I was yesterday. Like, it was just like, let's completely reboot. Like, let's completely reboot and you get a top 10 pick, and you don't have to, wonder if Doug should stay or not. Like, it's justifiable.
I'm sorry. I was having visions of 2008, ironically, the same year the Eagles had that tie with the Bengals, and down to the last day of the season. and you needed somebody to lose in order to stay in the playoff or get into the playoffs. And that day, the Eagles needed the Raiders to beat Tampa
The
Bay.
Raiders, yes.
Yeah, all this different stuff. And today, this game starts, and then you need the Redskins to lose. The Redskins are losing, and you're like, the Eagles are up, 14-3. You're like, oh, this is like 2008 all over again. And then, the rest is history, and Doug got pass happy.
Yeah, I think we all thought maybe Jalen Hurts would save Doug's job. He came on, 2 games ago, looked fantastic against the Saints, did a nice job, almost led them to a win in Arizona. But then against Dallas, we saw that the same issues happening that happened for Carson Wentz, an offensive line that, makes way too many mental mistakes, false starts, 12 penalties, half of them were false starts. I mean, just all the same ugliness reared its head. The inability to stick with the run, to give only Miles Sanders 4 carries in the second half. When you're still in the game, you're only 2 scores down, and for some reason they're playing like they're, 30 points down. So all those same issues kind of reared their head yesterday. And, I thought maybe there was a chance Hurts could save Doug's job, and if they won in Dallas and beat Washington, then he would probably be coming back. But I don't see it now. I think that if you're Lurie, you have to honestly look at this team and say, we have a lot of issues here, and I think it starts with the head coach. These slow starts. They got off to a fast start yesterday. Now they're not finishing in the second half. They've been outscored, a lot in the second half in these last 3 weeks. I think it's something like 45-13 is what it is in these last 3 games in the second half. So, there's just so many issues that keep cropping up week in and week out, and I don't know how you can excuse a head coach for that kind of, for so many different things that have gone wrong here.
I don't know how people can get this idea in their head that a good offensive coordinator will fix this. Like, that's not going to happen.
Agreed. There's so many more. It's not just play calling. It's not just play calling. When you bring up the consistent penalties that are happening week in and week out, and these breakdowns that are happening, the special teams, even what happened when other than Rager's return touchdown, when has the Eagles had any momentum from special teams? They don't force turnovers.
They're an awful special teams unit this year.
It's just, as a whole, it's just not a well-coached team. And people thinking that an offensive coordinator would come in. It's not like an offensive coordinator is going to change the culture. The culture is going to stay the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And if the offensive coordinator is good, then he's going to leave like Frank Reich did. So, and then you're back.
You're back at square one next year if it is successful.
I just don't think I don't know how you can go back into. Look, they fired Mike Groh last year, thinking like he was the problem, that getting these new guys in there will help rejuvenate Doug's offense. It didn't work. So now that it showed you that it didn't work and they got worse, why would you want to go try again? Like, this was the last chance. This really was the last chance to get it right. That offense was bad the last couple of years. Yes, they made the playoffs, but I think talent was the reason why they made the playoffs. They didn't have the talent to make the playoffs this year is what it really comes down to, too. The injuries caught up to them finally. It didn't caught up to them in years past. They had a good enough talent to still get in the playoffs in a weak NFC, but it's not like that right now. And they don't have the talent with all these injuries that they keep suffering. It shows. I just don't think – I don't know how you could sit here and think an offensive coordinator fixes this. They need to move on from Doug. But like Ed and I brought it up multiple times on the show, and I completely agree with it. It's 2012 all over again. This is literally the 2012 season. They're dead. Like, Andy Reid's funeral season was so evident, and to me, so is Doug's.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to see how hard these guys play on Sunday night against Washington. I think they will. I think they're still playing for Doug, but there is a big talent deficiency here, and now we're starting to hear Doug today coming out and saying, well, it's the injuries. And, until today, it's always been next man up mentality, this and that. But now he's really starting to kind of, figure this thing out and keep his job. He's saying it's the injuries. Now he's blaming. And you can say there are a lot of injuries. You put 6 offensive linemen on the IR. That's a lot. No team is prepared for that. But still, I think, good teams are they're prepared to overcome it, or at least they're prepared to look decent. Some of the mistakes they're making in the turnovers, to me, that's preparation during the week, and that is on the coaching staff.
Yeah, I totally agree, because today Trey Thomas broke it down, all the false starts that they had, and there was like 6 of them. And then, people are trying to blame it on, there's a new quarterback in there, a new cadence. And they even, when you break down the tape, didn't even come down to the cadence. It just came to these guys are not prepared. It's ill preparation. And, seeing Doug in his press conference today, it felt like I was watching Fredo getting to the boat, Just,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great.
It was Luca Brazzi.
Sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, though. I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something else too is, going back, because to me, I think this is it's accurate to say it's a 3-year sample size, because 2018, 2019, then this year, like, you just rarely remember any games where this team looked good for a full game. Like, it's always just been a tale of two halves. If they start slow, they keep it competitive, or if they start fast, they have a slow second half. They just have even against bad teams. Like, they played the Bengals. Like, and Wentz didn't play that bad against the Bengals. And still, to that point, it's just, there's just a hurdle. I don't know if it's because sometimes I'm like, well, your opening script is flawed, but then the next week Peterson has a good opening script, but then a team adjusts and then they score 0 points in the second half. There's just so many lapses in so many different areas, and it's frustrating.
Historically, the Eagles have always felt like this. Like, it's either a tale or two halves, or if they're on fire, they wind up playing down.
Right. It's always a dogfight with them, and I think that they really rode that underdog reputation, that mentality, and that momentum from it, and that's what got them to the playoffs the last couple of years. I just don't feel it with that team anymore. I don't want to say that they're missing pieces, because I think everything that happened this season proved that moving on from Malcolm Jenkins was the right decision to make. They haven't really lost anyone really that is a difference maker, I guess I would say. But besides, really, what everybody's going to say is Frank Reich. So I don't know. I think,
and I'm so tired of hearing about Frank Reich. Like, right. I'm just so tired of hearing. It's just frustrating that, like, there's this attachment, but it's true. I understand. Same thing with the year 2017. Like, I love that we got a Super Bowl, that it's so frustrating. We bring it up every show. It's like, but we have to, because we have seen this team thrive under him, but it looks like that's just the anomaly.
Plus, if you're going to promise a new norm and this is what you're going to give us, that's a fireable offense.
Facts.
Yeah, that and the Nick Foles, we should have kept Nick Foles argument. That's, I'm kind of tired of hearing that too. Just especially when
he's not saving this team.
No. Going back to being lack of preparation. How is it? And people want to, again, Howie is part of the problem, and they're like, you can't draft, you can't get free agents, but look at all the people who leave here that, like, he brought to the team. Now they're not on the team and they're playing better elsewhere. Is that Howie's lack of eye for talent, or is it just good coaching elsewhere where they're, getting Sidney Jones is playing way better than he did here. And he had a couple of years here, and he goes, somewhere else, and all of a sudden he was one of the top backs.
I think there's a lot of pressure in Philadelphia, along those lines. I think there's just a lot more. He's in Jacksonville, Sidney Jones. You're playing on a 1-win team in nobody cares about the NFL in Jacksonville. They play half their games in London, for crying out loud. You go to that environment, and it's it's like it's a much easier environment.
Oh yeah, I live right by here. There, nobody cares about the Jaguars. It's a Bucs town.
No, and even like you say, Aguilar, and good for Aguilar having a really nice season. But Las Vegas is new to football. There's no fans that are coming out. There's just no pressure in cities like that. Not like Philadelphia, where it's a pressure cooker, and it's going to eat. I'll tell you right now, it's going to eat Andre Dillard alive, unless he can somehow get mentally tougher too. But being a number 1 draft pick in this town is tough. Jalen Reagor knows that now. And even if you're not a number 1 pick, the pressure just eats you up here. There's just a lot of scrutiny in Philadelphia. Very active fan base that makes their opinions heard, and it's hard to excel here. You have to be mentally tough, and you have to be able to, like Jalen Hurts said, stay away from the rat poison.
Even to the point where this weekend on the NFL on Fox, like their main story, they were playing all the audio from WIP. Just everything fans were saying, the hosts were saying. So this is a tough town for any sport, any profession, really. Because me being from the world of professional wrestling, this town has always been tough, for professional wrestling. And I always tell people, when I was wrestling in ECW, those same fans who came to ECW were the same people in the 700 level at Vet Stadium. So we're a tough town. We're a blue collar town. We're a busted knuckle, hardworking group of people who want a good return on our investment, and our investment is time. Our investment is money. And we keep receipts. And we're not seeing a return on our investment of the time we're putting in as fans.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is. And you have great experience with it, Meanie. I mean, you've been through it. You've seen it from that side of things, and it's tough. I mean, even with social media, it's gotten even tougher. Some of the attacks on players, and through social media, everybody gave Brandon Graham a hard time when he started blocking fans. But that's kind of what you have to do, man. You have to shut down your social media account, and you have to go dark, until your career is over, especially in a city like Philadelphia.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's tough to do. I mean, these are young, these are 20-something-year-old kids, basically, that, they're a product of that social media generation. So it's tough for them to do. It's tough for them to stay away from it, to not look at it, and to not let it affect them.
It's funny you say that, because I always say we probably live in a generation where most NFL players have learned to read a playbook from playing video games, playing Madden and stuff like that. And now they're, doing it professionally.
It's funny you say that.
Go ahead.
Dwayne Haskins got cut today, and they were showing like all the old tweets about him, and Doug Gottlieb wants to murder Dwayne Haskins. I think he tweeted out. He was tweeting. They were tweeting they're bringing back all the tweets of Dwayne Haskins, of what went wrong this offseason, or what has gone on with him. And Doug Gottlieb just went on a rampage on Twitter, and they brought up all his old tweets of he bashed Dwayne Haskins over 50 times on Twitter. And his one tweet said that, and with no basis whatsoever, and has not been proven, he said an NFL source told him that the coaching staff last year, Jay Gruden's staff, thought that Dwayne Haskins was dyslexic. So, I mean, it's the social media. It's the I'm sorry to say it, Ed, but it's also the media too. We're in an age where we're just chasing headlines. We're trying to chase that hot clickbait stuff, the hotline, a hot headline, just to get some takes out there, man. It's really,
and they don't. There's just no thought of a repercussion.
We live in a world where it's a microwave mentality. Instead of letting the meal cook properly, we throw it in the microwave, heat it up in 2 minutes, and then we eat it and we digest it, and we're on to the next meal. Same thing with the news.
He couldn't stay away. Giovanni couldn't stay away. This is Giovanni's Twitch right here. He's watching us right now. He couldn't stay away. I knew it.
We miss you, bud.
We do miss you, bud. Feel better next week, man.
Dude, I love you, Giovanni. Speaking about social media, Giovanni made a great point there on social media last night, saying, there's people behind the face masks and stuff like that, and with the bullying and stuff like that. But Philly's a tough town. But and like I said, we live in that mindset where everything's next. I'm bored. What's next? Same with headlines. If a headline isn't sensational enough, you don't run with it. So like you just said, they were going through old Twitter, old tweets, looking for something to talk about. It's insane.
Happens here a lot. It does happen. I mean, I
really encourage people to. It happens in my profession too. There's somebody I knew who was a great young talent, and he got picked up by a national promotion, and then somebody went through his Twitter feed, and then they cut him. And ironically, he was talking about making fun of the Dallas Cowboys and stuff like that, but he was saying some salacious things. But that wrestling promotion went through his old tweet, or fans went through the old tweets, showed it to the promotion, You know, you got to be careful what you say. You know,
It's a tough field. I mean,
you need you need a mental callus. You need to build up some sort of mental callus, you know, to survive.
Did you guys read what Marcus Smith had in the Players Tribune? That's based off of Philly. That's
Really?
based off of those fans. He was suicidal. Meanie, go read it. It's really a good piece. Marcus Smith did a whole piece about being a first round bust and what it does to you mentally. And I mean, everything he's talking about is straight from Philly. Like, this is all from Philadelphia fans. It's tough, man. It's a tough place. Love you too, Gio. Rest up, man. So let's get into Gio's question, and then we'll get into some other questions I saw.
No need to apologize, Gio. I mean, you're a human being.
How dare you be sick, man?
Right. I told Ed you were sick. Look, I told Ed you were sick, and he jumped right in for you, man. So, like, we're all a team here. We're all good, man. No, we needed Ed on the show. There's a lot to talk about, man. There's a lot going on. But
get well, Gio. Get well, man.
I'll bring up Gio's question while he's watching right now, Ed. Let's just say it right now, because I know I think it. I know you think it personally. I know Tyler thinks it. I'm pretty sure Meanie thinks it as well. Is Howie Roseman back in 2021?
Who starts this one? Oh yeah, go ahead, Ed, please.
Well, yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I do. You know, I think he'll have another set of eyes, maybe to John Dorsey, who's with him now looking at things, but I certainly expect him to be back. You know, he hasn't gone on that sales pitch for his job like we heard Doug go on that sales pitch for his job today. But, you know, Howie will probably talk to us next week, I would think, after the season ends. And we'll see. But I suspect he'll be back. I think that, you know, he kind of dug this hole that the Eagles are in the salary cap. And now he's got to have to figure out a way to dig out of it. But I think he'll get one more year. But boy, it's hard to look at some of the players that they could have had in previous drafts. And, you know I've kind of defended some of his draft picks. I mean, he has done, you know, he found Mulata, he found Sweat, you know, he brought in some undrafted free agent guys. I mean, he's hit on some things, but, you know,
he's not doing enough with the premium picks. That's what it is. Like,
right.
It's not, you have to do there.
To not take, you know, a Justin Jefferson, who's probably going to be the rookie of the year. I mean, even J.K. Dobbins in the second round, I think he's got 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns this year. You know, Antonio Gibson, they could have had him with Washington. You know, he's got 9 touchdowns. You know, obviously the receivers are, you know, they're always brought up, but there are a lot of other players out there that they could have had and they didn't take for whatever reason. And the players they took just haven't been either developed or they just don't have the talent to play in the league.
So do you think they scale you're on the boat that they bring him back, and I'm pretty sure we all are too, but do you think that there's a chance that they scale him back and his duties back?
No, I think they'll stick with this, you know, so-called collaborative approach. And
John Dorsey has not a decent track record in drafting. Decent, I said.
Yeah. And if he's still here, if he doesn't, you know, take one of those 5 openings or interview for them and get one of those 5 openings for the GM on 5 different teams, then yeah, maybe he'll be that guy. But, you know, another reason to keep Howie is if you're going to dump Doug, you know, you're going to have a GM come in to hire the coach. And I think Jeffrey would probably prefer that Howie, you know, be involved in that interview process. A voice that he trusts, a voice that, you know, he knows the organization. So I think if you're going to dump Doug, you're going to keep Howie to kind of help identify the next coach.
I completely agree because I think if John Dorsey stays by chance, the track record of picking coaches doesn't get me excited, though. I will say that. But I mean, if he can help Howie with the draft, as much as we kill Howie Roseman, and I mean the fact that he's going to be a part of another head coaching search is damning, but it's not like they pick bad coaches. I mean, they nail the right guy at the right time when they need it, though. Because yes, Chip's tenure was a failure, but at the beginning it wasn't. So Doug's tenure, I wouldn't count it as a failure. I count it as a dying out. But it was an initial success coming off of Chip Kelly. So the circumstances are a little bit different here, I think. But I'd rather him have the say on who the head coach is rather than John Dorsey, though. That's all I know.
Well, I've heard buzz, and this kind of plays into what Gio has here, that he thinks that how he stays with the cap and nothing else. I mean, I've heard that Dorsey kind of comes with a package deal with Eric Bieniemy as being the head coach.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, Matt Lombardo said that as well. I've seen some people say it.
Yeah, I mean, just from what I've been told, that it's kind of a package deal. So if the Eagles want to hire Dorsey to be the GM and put Howie, in the cap room and have him, sharpen his pencils and pull out his calculators and figure this whole thing out, then, if you get Dorsey, then you're probably going to get Bieniemy.
Yeah, and color. I mean, a lot of Eagles fans are all over that, but that'd probably be like my least anticipated.
You convinced me too. I like, if we're going to do this completely reset that it seems that they're heading down for the coaching staff, get away from the Reed tree and completely reset, because then you're going to stick with a West Coast offense with those roots, and there'll be a lot of ties to Howie still. We can maybe fall back into like, who's the scapegoat? Who do we blame? Like, again, I want to completely reset, and I've seen a few people mention it. I am all on Lincoln Riley if you can do it.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley.
I know it's just a complete far stretch, but if you can get him out of college and get him here, and I'm sure he'll have some type of control a little bit. But there's a Joe Brady would be another one. Just get a young guy, innovative, and we all know Leary likes offense. It's going to be an offensive-minded coach. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know. I just.
My thing is, I know everybody loves Eric Bieniemy because of the unknown, because that's all why you love him. Like, don't say other reasons why. I know the Chiefs' offense is awesome. It's crazy, but Pat Mahomes is one of the most talented quarterbacks I ever played, and Andy Reid's one of the best head coaches ever. Like, you're in love with Eric Bieniemy's unknown. Look at Andy Reid's offensive coaches that become NFL head coaches, and look how quickly they die off. You want to try that again? You really want to go down that route again? I'd rather go with a completely different route, like the Lincoln Riley route. I know that's people are like, well, that's college again. Lincoln Riley's not Chip Kelly, so I'm not really comparing that situation at all. I think Lincoln Riley would definitely handle it well in the NFL. But if you want to make that argument, that's fine. There's a guy named Brian Dabble out in Buffalo who has succeeded at the college level and the NFL level. He's done stuff with Jalen Hurts in Alabama. He's done great stuff with Josh Allen in Buffalo. He's got some great coaching experience in New England as well in his background. That's a guy that I can get behind. Joe Brady, I mean, literally put Joe Burrow on the map and really propelled him to reach his peak as his true talent is. That's some guy I definitely want as well. And not only that, for a team that struggles to scheme for the receivers, I would love a head coach like Joe Brady who makes his offense completely dependent on receivers in the passing game. So those are just a few guys off the top of my head, since I see a bunch of comments are asking who's going to be. But I really think they got to go with an offensive guy, obviously, like you said as well. But my top guys, Lincoln Riley, Brian Dabble, and Joe Brady, right off the top of the head right there. I don't know if, Ed, you've thought of anybody yet.
Well, I like those candidates for sure, and it will be an offensive guy. But if you look at Lurie's history of hiring coaches, I mean, he kind of goes, off the board with his picks. I mean, who heard of Andy Reid when they brought him in here back in 1999? I mean, he's a quarterback coach, no real track record, and he hires him, and Reid's now a Hall of Fame coach. Ray Rhodes, even bringing Ray Rhodes in, and then Doug Peterson. Nobody really had any idea that Peterson was going to be the coach here. They're interviewing Gaze and McAdoo and all these names, and then Lurie goes off the board and hires Peterson. So I mean, we're throwing these names out there, and these are all names we've heard of. You almost have to kind of look at the next layer and see, who's a quarterback coach somewhere that might be ready to step up and become a head coach like Andy Reid did. So, look beyond the obvious is what I'm saying. I mean, look for names that maybe we're not as well acquainted with as some of the ones you threw out there, Connor.
This is a good comment right here. Mike McDaniel. I kind of was hoping for him as an offensive coordinator last year, openly on the podcast. So that's a great name. That's something that goes along the lines of what, Ed, you're saying now. Mike McDaniel's a up-and-coming coach in San Francisco. He's not a household name yet, so that goes along the lines of a guy right there. I think that would be a great hire too. I mean, that's a huge jump for him, but I mean, I'm all for that. Tyler, what other guys? Are you thinking of all the top guys too?
I just like I said,
Arthur Smith in Tennessee. Arthur Smith in Tennessee too. I forgot to shout him out. I think Arthur Smith in Tennessee would be good.
I just go through the process. Well, the biggest thing for me is I want to plan at the quarterback position, and I want to know what. And somebody said, "Would you roll with Hurts or would you roll with Wentz?" I would ask the same thing to the coach, and if they say, I want to have a QB competition, then so be it. But I want to see a plan in place. So as far as like specific names, I do like Joe Brady, probably, or Lincoln Riley the most. But I mean, how realistic is that? I don't. The biggest thing with Riley is he can't be plucked out of. Yeah, Gio saying or me. Yeah.
I would take it. I would absolutely take it, Gio. Yeah, you can definitely be the head coach of the Eagles. I'm good with that.
But yeah, and then what the Bills OC did with Josh Allen this year, I mean, that's definitely enticing because he's built just like Carson Wentz, and they're very similar in styles. So that has to be at least intriguing.
He knows your other quarterback too. So I mean, that quarterback battle right there would be nice. Whatever, as long as we're all on the Fire Doug train, that's good enough for me.
Get him the hell away. Thank you.
Here's
for
what else
the
I wanted to
Super
get into. Yes, thank you. Goodbye. But here's what I really wanted to touch on that a lot of people I thought were being, ridiculous about. And Ed said it to start off the show, but I wanted to elaborate on this. Yeah, Jalen Hurts wasn't that great yesterday, but I think it was the product of the offense being as bad as it is, and it showed. I mean, this system, this offense, it's just bad all around. I mean, yes, you can look at the personnel and point at them and say that that's the reason why, because they're not that great either. But there's nothing creative about this offense. There's nothing exciting about this offense. Doug doesn't know how to sustain a lead anymore. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. I'm not sure if you really knew how to do it.
Was it halftime yesterday? Was it 23-17?
20-17.
Yeah. Do we know how many runs Miles Sanders had in the second half?
4.
Yeah. But this is just the same thing. Did it against Cleveland. Yeah, it's just the same song and dance. And it's so annoying because Miles Sanders was having a game. He seemed to be playing well. I don't understand it.
How do you not have a running game plan for a team that can't tackle? I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are notoriously, they're matadors. They Olay and they let you go through. I mean, you can easily run on them. You can easily impose your will on the Dallas Cowboys as far as the run game goes. But again, Doug is a gunslinger. He likes to pass. And all this talk about Doug, I'm not sure. Schwartz should be on the hot seat a little bit too, with everything that happened on the defense. With
if you get rid of Doug, you get rid of Schwartz. It's a package deal. You don't bring him back.
Schwartz was the first to be hired. He should be the first to be fired because you're up. Of course you're up 17 points, but some of those passes that just looked way too easy. It looked like 7-on-7 out there, just the way, Dallas was passing the ball down the field and nobody had to answer for them. They had a little bit of a spark when Slay, did the interception and brought it back. But then again, back to Doug.
0 points
with the false starts. We were right on the 25, and then we're already back near the 50. It's like, just when you get a little bit ahead, they another Godfather reference, they keep sucking you back, towards the middle of the field. But
I think we're seeing that. Yes, the quarterback position is very important, but at the end of the day, it's not a quarterback league. This is a situation league.
Yeah.
And if these guys aren't surrounded, you're talking about the offensive line is on its 12th different rotation. The injuries are all plagued, and then the play calling. It eventually, I'm not sure a guy like just a sustained a for sure top 5 quarterback could come in here and hide these flaws. There's just so much going on where. So yeah, I thought Hurts is going back to the original question that brought this thing up. Hurts's running ability has been the most impressive thing to me, and what I think it's masking the most is. If you rush 4, it's slowing the rush down because they have to play, disciplined to where if you over pursue, he just takes that crease every single time and he gets a 8 to 10 yard run. So what's helping is the offensive line seems to be protecting him better than they were with Wentz, because Wentz's ability to run seemed to be non-existent at the second half of the season. So as far as like the arm and decision making, it's really hard to evaluate with what kind of situation Hurts is in. But overall, I'm still impressed by the guy. I love his mentality. I think he makes some throws. His deep ball is another thing that's been impressed. And then I don't know if you guys remember, but that throw to Alshon Jeffrey, I think it was in the fourth quarter, the cover 2 beater. I mean, that's a big boy throw. So like, there's things that you can take away. And yeah, he struggled, but it's a positive, I guess. I mean, it's not as positive as the first 2 weeks, but you can't expect a rookie to just dominate for 4 straight weeks. It seemed unrealistic.
I think he did well for somebody who had 3.5 games without a proper introduction into the NFL, whether it's through an off season, OTAs, getting them acclimated to the world of the NFL. I think he did fairly well. I think he held his own, but again, the call playing did him no justice.
And his deep ball to Deshaun. I mean, that was a beautiful play. Like, I mean, there were a few things to take away from and still be excited about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was his third start. I think he tried to do too much, to be honest with you. I think he really wanted to kind of obviously win that game, and he's made some bad decisions there, throwing that ball in the end zone, throwing an end zone interception, lost that fumble. Questionable. I mean, they reviewed it and they determined that the ball was moving, and
that was weird.
So it survived the review, so you have to go with it. But I just think he tried to do a little bit too much. And then the last interception, you're trying to get, you're scrambling. There's less than 4. I think there's 4 minutes to go in the game. But it was tough for him. His first trip back to Texas. His home state where he grew up, his family was there to watch him play as a pro for the first time. I mean, the urgency might have been a little too big for him there with all those factors. But again, his third start, I think he's was the victim of an offense that just is injured and is kind of just wandering cluelessly with Doug Peterson not being able to coordinate an offense. I mean, a lot of times the plays that were sent in looked rushed. Didn't give Hurts a lot of time at the line of scrimmage to kind of look at the defense because the play clock is winding down. It almost seems to me like Doug's just pulling plays out of a hat with 12 seconds to go on the play clock and getting them in. I mean, that's an uncoordinated offense that he's running because he's the offensive coordinator and the head coach. We talk about him not coming back. I mean, what if Lurie says, look, we have to bring in an offensive coordinator for you, and you're going to have to give up play calling, and we're going to fire Jim Schwartz. I mean, you feel bad for Schwartz because the defense is so undermanned. You looked at those players that he had to go with yesterday. He had like 4 undrafted rookie free agents that played a lot of snaps, including a guy that was on the Saints to start the season as an undrafted rookie free agent, Joe Bache, I think is how you say it, the linebacker. But Graylin Arnold plays 42 snaps. Jaquette plays 40 snaps. I mean, these are guys these are undrafted free agents. And, but still, he's very stubborn with his scheme. He doesn't seem to have any flexibility. That's an issue for Jim. And to give up 500 yards of total offense 2 weeks in a row, no matter who's out there, is just an indictment on Schwartz, I think, not so much the injuries, because you have to kind of know what personnel you have, and you have to play to their strengths and try to disguise their weaknesses. And for some reason, he just doesn't, he sticks to his scheme regardless. So, I think he's gone.
It also didn't help that Cox went out early in the game with a stinger too, and they get that pressure up front. So
at least Cox finally showed the city of Philadelphia what his impact is, because we're all crying about his box score stats. At least that was finally on full display for you there. Like that, how broken that defense could possibly be without Fletcher Cox's impact out there was incredibly noticeable.
Yeah, but you still have guys you're paying a ton of money to.
Right, they should have stepped up. I agree with you.
$10 million. Javon Hargrave's making $10 million. I mean, where did they go? I mean, okay, you lose Cox, but now you got these 2 other guys you're paying millions of dollars to that, frankly, didn't play well at all. And Raekwon Williams is in there, another undrafted free agent playing 20 snaps. But you got three big hitters in there. When you lose one, you shouldn't have that big collapse where Zeke Elliott's picking up these huge chunks on the ground. He goes over 100 yards and no pass rush. I mean, Jackson and Hargrave had to step up, and I didn't see it.
I think it's ridiculous that if this defense can't stop the run, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. They immediately just like how many times do we see graphics of like this ex quarterback is thrown 13 straight completions or like it's happened like 4 times this year. The fact that they just let Andy Dalton have that type of game. Yes, there's unrestricted free agents and rookies playing, but your defensive line is your strength, and yes, Cox was out, but like you said, Ed, I mean, you're paying too much money to let that type of thing happen, and it's predictable. Like if this defense, if you see them start to give up like 2 10-yard runs in the first quarter, you're like, it's going to be a long day because they fall for the play action. The linebackers are already bad, so it's. Yeah, I love Schwartz. He has these like huge up and down. It's like his career with the Philadelphia Eagles has been super like roller coasty. He'll have these stretches where the defense looks awesome. And then there's times where bad quarterbacks or average quarterbacks just torch us. And it's like, I can't believe Andy Dalton did that.
It's one thing to give up 500 yards to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It's another thing to give up 500 yards to Ginger Stallback.
Seriously.
Yeah. And then we're still seeing jet sweeps. I mean, CeeDee Lamb scores the final touchdown on an easy, end around.
They cannot adjust to that
I mean,
at all.
how many times have we seen that going back to, the Chase Claypool in Pittsburgh and,
Too many times.
The Rams.
The Rams are really just exposed us for that.
Yeah. And here it is, week 16, and we're still seeing it being an issue. I mean,
They can't stop it.
No.
Groundhog Day.
Yep.
Going back to Hurts though, for everyone that's killing him, I think we saw what we knew. This offense is broken. The passing offense, is really broken. I mean, his mobility masked how broken the passing offense was the last couple of weeks. That's what the difference was, and why it was so exciting. Just a broken passing offense. You have to get rid of the offensive play caller. You have to move on from that system. I can't blame
what we thought they were.
Exactly. They were. Yeah, exactly. And
or what we think they are,
Look, a lot of people are like, they felt some kind of righteousness in what Jalen Hurts did yesterday because they're like, look at Carson. Like, this is what we had to deal with all season long. It looks exactly the same. What's the difference? Like, okay, you're right, but I mean that doesn't take away from Jalen Hurts' talent. Still, like he's playing this. He's in the same bad offense as Carson Wentz was in. Like that's it. That's the only difference. He's still in a bad, broken offense, no matter what the quarterback is. They're both just really talented guys.
I'll continue to beat this drum. I understand Howie has had misses on defense as well, but I am going to pull back a little bit. Like we mentioned how many guys outside of this scheme go out and thrive, and just at the receiver position, when you factor in a Golden Tate, the offense had no idea how to utilize him. He goes to New York and he's playing just well. Nelson Aguilar with Vegas. I have a hard time, like, yeah, J-Jaw hasn't panned out, but I have a really hard time I'm more so putting blame on the coaching staff for putting these guys in not winnable situations more than this front office has no idea how to find talent. And I'll run with that, and I'll give it one more year. It's really hard for me to criticize even like an Andre Dillard. Like and he's probably more of the mental side than he is the physical side, but I'm more refrained to continue to just beat that drum of like, how he keeps me. I'm a firm believer that there's no way Justin Jefferson is playing well in this scheme. Yes, he probably is playing better than Rager. I agree, but it's just so difficult to evaluate these guys. Just like we said, Hurts. There's things that we could pull away from this game, but we understand like this isn't a situation where these guys can thrive. So
that's a good point.
And if there's that big of a disconnect with the front office and the coaching staff, and we're going to continue to miss on these guys because they're not being put in the right situations, you got to get this head coach out of here.
Yeah, I really think that I don't think Doug Peterson can coach outside passing tight ends. He can't coach out. He can't scheme for receivers.
you definitely hit the head on a nail on the head when you brought up Golden Tate. I mean, you trade for the guy, and the guy's totally transparent until the big play in Chicago where he scores that one touchdown. Other than that, where was
Nothing.
it? And then Mike Rose says in the press conference, "Well, we haven't figured out a way to use him in our offense." Then why did you trade for him?
Right. And then that's a disconnect, right? Because clearly in these meetings that they have weekly, I'm sure there's a manager meeting with the coaching staff. Clearly they said we need to upgrade the receiver position. So Howie said, all right, I'll go get you a guy. And also think about the disconnect with we talked about it, the running back position. The coaching staff let Howie know, to me in my head, Myles is going to be the 3-down guy. How many times was he the actual 3-down guy? He's not featured that often. And then in the beginning of the season, he got hurt and there was nobody behind him. So it's not just drafting. The disconnect is apparent in signings as well.
Yeah, and then curiously, they bring up Jordan Howard, who I thought should have been on the team from day one. And just kind of give him 2 carries and don't give him to Sanders. I mean, there's just doesn't seem to be a plan. Again, to me, it just comes down to the lack of coordination of the offense. And Doug's the offensive coordinator, and he's not coordinating it very well, to be honest. So that's the biggest indictment to me, that and the preparation, the lack of preparation from all the coaches.
He's the uncoordinator.
He's the uncoordinator. I mean, he needs an offensive – even if the offensive coordinator isn't calling plays, at least he's someone there that you can bounce ideas off of. Now you have Press Taylor and Jeff Stoutland. I mean, who you going to here? You have a lot of voices, just a lot of too many voices, not enough focus, and you see it on game day. It's a very disjointedly run offense.
Couldn't agree more. And
stop giving up on Rager, everybody. Just be patient with him. We talked about the microwave era. Yes, he's not thriving, but the situation sucks. He does look a little bit lazy at times in route running.
I mean, that's to be better. I've seen better play calling from a bunny rabbit jumping on a PlayStation controller than what Doug's doing right now. So I mean,
right, Rager, right, and I get ads on my Twitter every Sunday. I feel like because of how much I was on the Rager train this offseason of people trolling me about it. Like, I get it. He needs to be better. He does need to be better. They're right. I have to sit back and just take my L right now. But I will tell you right now, and Tyler hit it on the head perfectly. That coach that they have does not know how to scheme for receivers. And if you think so, you're full of shit. I will tell you that right now, you are. And so when they get a new head coach in here and Rager's in the new system next year, they have a real full offseason and they make that decision at quarterback, because I think they should go in with a new head coach and do quarterback battle and just decide best man wins with the new head coach and the new system.
By the way, Devontae Adams had 38 catches his rookie year with Aaron Rodgers.
He was not good his first 2 years in the league, and I get it. And look, I talk to Monte Rager frequently. Ed and I talk to him on the podcast. He always brings up to Jalen right away. He goes, "Hey man, Reggie Wayne struggled. Like, I was there, and he had Peyton Manning throwing him the ball, and he could not make his impact his first couple years in the league. And then the lights just went on in his head. The lights have to turn on in your head as a young player when you transition to the league. There's always going to be that moment where the light's on. It's there. How can you have that in this offense? Because nobody in that offense has that right now. So how can you expect a rookie during a pandemic to get there? Look, if Breaker struggles next year, then I might call a spade. I might finally cave into what people are saying, but I'm going to give him another chance next year in a new offense, because if you think this coach and this offense and this staff can scheme for receivers, I don't know what you're watching.
I love his talent. I love his ability. I am a little nervous because the thing that did show up on tape at TCU was he would sometimes look a little like he's just not fully there
dejected.
When running. Yeah. And it was easy to point blame at the bad quarterback, but now maybe it's just pointing blame at the bad offensive scheme.
Even if it's a bad quarterback, you don't do that in the NFL, bud. Like,
this
is a grown man's league. Like,
especially in Philly.
You gotta give it. Yeah, you gotta effort every single snap. It will get there. I just think the lights need to turn on, and the lights didn't even turn on for Doug Peterson this season. So how can I expect it to turn on for a rookie wide receiver? We'll revisit it next year.
I saw an interview with Chris Long where he talked about his first couple seasons in the NFL and just the speed of the game and adapting to that speed. He said, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a highway with all these cars zooming by me. But eventually, like you said, that light bulb goes off and the game starts coming to you instead of you going to the game. Maybe that's all need, a guy like a regular needs is just to get used to the speed of the game and get proper coaching.
You know what I am tired of though? This has been about 4 years now. Ever since Carson Wentz, we haven't had a rookie just come out and have a Justin Jefferson type season. We like not an Odell season, or like there wasn't a guy who just came out and dominated. And
right, Miles Sanders has been their most exciting rookie. Honestly,
yeah, he was the closest, right? The cool thing though is they have a top 10 pick, and typically top 10 picks can have that kind of impact. So I will say I'm excited about that. This is
the 2021 Eagles. Yeah, the 2021 Eagles will need that type of impact. So they better hit this pick right because they're going to need that type of impact on this team. There's going to be a lot of changes coming this offseason. What a great time to have a podcast. What a great time because we're going to be discussing that.
If there's a top corner available, corner or receiver are obviously two big needs. I think this team does so well at drafting the trenches that I don't think that they need to take one in the top 10, like an O-line or D-line. But I do think, I think corner is the biggest need. I just don't know if this is a cornerback class to have a top 10 guy. I know they're Surtain from Bama. I don't know how much you guys know about him, but I'm a little skeptical on him.
There's also a Virginia Tech kid that's getting a lot of pub. I think Farley's his name, something Farley, not Chris, but something Farley.
I'll say definitely not Chris Farley, but yeah, I think it's Nick Farley.
No, but there's a Farley from Virginia Tech. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I saw Virginia Tech play the last 3 years, and that would be 0.
That's where my dad went to college, man. Go Hokies.
Yeah,
that's all my dad knew about them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he would know then. God, may he rest in peace. But I don't know. I really haven't studied the cornerback play.
I haven't either. Not yet.
Wide receiver seems, there's obvious ones. Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase.
Right.
I mean,
there's a lot to focus on right now. We'll definitely get into we'll get into the draft this offseason for sure. I'm trying to figure out who's gonna be coaching my team in 2 weeks because Black Monday's coming, guys, and I think Doug Peterson's gonna be on that block. But let's wrap it up, fellas. It's 52 minutes of great Eagles talk. This was really what I needed. A good venting session with the fans, and
it's a shame
feedback as always.
It's a shame Black Monday won't be on New Year's Day. You'd have a double celebration.
By the way, let me ask you that, Ed. Do you think, I remember Chip was fired heading into week 17, I think, against the Giants. So
Shermer was the last coach that year. Shermer coached the final game.
Do you think
they won?
Yeah, they did. They did.
The game was a run up the middle, which was apropos to say the least that year.
Yeah.
Just setting a statement. Do you think that this is something? Well, I mean, I guess my answer is kind of already there. I guess I wouldn't have been surprised if there's going to be like a Sunday report, right? Because it seems like every Sunday there's a report that comes out for the Eagles from Schefter or somebody. Like, is there going to be a report that says that it's done? Like there's this cloud over Doug and he's going to be done? Or do you think that they're going to take their time with this? Is it going to be dragged out? But you also don't want to miss out on opportunities.
Well, John McMullen, who writes with me, he wrote a good story about that being eliminated now kind of gives Lurie this week to kind of cool off a little bit and to kind of reassess, so it doesn't have to be done right after the game ends. He has this full week now to kind of evaluate, kind of see how he feels about things. So I could see if they're going to make a move that it's going to happen much sooner rather than later. And I think it could be, Monday morning or maybe something leaks Sunday that's it. But I think having that night game will probably push it into, a Monday, maybe even a Tuesday type decision because, the flexing of the game and prolonging the misery of Eagles fans by making them
setting
wait.
Doug out in style. They're setting Doug out in style, man. The last game of the night, grand finale.
That was a stunner. That was a stunner to flex that game to 820. But
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I think that Jeffrey now this week can kind of with a clear head and not filled with emotion and make an emotional decision. Now he can kind of, look back on things and kind of get his mind right before he makes this decision.
Real quick, Beanie. When they fired Chip Kelly, I thought I remember reading, I think Jeff McClain reported it, that Lurie had his mind made up that they were moving on after the Thanksgiving game, I believe it was. Do you think that, because I believe against the Lions, it was one of those games against the Lions or the Bucks when they got blown out like bad.
Yeah.
I thought there was times in the season where you can take those games and you could say, this is it for you, Doug. Like this was the nail in the coffin that could have been there already for Lurie. Do you think that's been a chance? Like there's been something like that again that happened this year? Because there's some bad losses on the schedule.
Yeah, there are, and I did have one in my mind there, and now it's left my mind. But the Chip Kelly thing, yeah, there were 2 blowout losses. They lost, I think, to the Dolphins on Sunday, and then they went to Detroit and got waxed again. And those 2 losses were pretty bad.
There's a Tampa.
Jameis Winston destroyed them.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. I'm not sure where that was in the sequence. Maybe it was coming out of Detroit or going before Miami.
I think Detroit was the Thanksgiving Day game.
It was.
Detroit was Thanksgiving game. It was after Miami game because Bradford got hurt Miami. Not in Miami, against Miami. Sanchez starts against Detroit. And I think Bucks was right after or something like that. But it was awful no matter what. I didn't want to remember it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good.
The amazing thing about the Chip Kelly firing, I remember I was listening to the press conference that day he got fired. Somebody asked him about personnel decisions, and Chip Kelly goes, I'm not responsible for personnel decisions.
He did. Yeah.
3 hours he was fired. I also heard the icing on the cake was he forced Jeffrey Lurie to move the Christmas party so the team could have their proper preparation for the game, and then he didn't even bother coming to the Christmas party himself,
right?
And stuff like that. Just like he was such a curmudgeon around
the jokes around like Howie and Chip, like about how Howie just had this like dedicated little office and like just, like that was so ugly.
It was like
they made a comic of that where Howie's on the little closet office at the end and Chip's on the other side making all the personnel. Dude, that was fun. It was funny. Sorry, not fun. It was not fun. It was funny.
It was still shocking when it happened. And that won't happen with Doug. But that I remember I was just about ready to file a story on him saying he had no responsibility for the personnel decisions. I'm just about finished. I was working for a newspaper at the time. I'm ready to file it. It's like 6:30 in the evening, maybe around that time. And then an email pops in from the Eagles saying Chip Kelly's been relieved of his duties. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a friend playing a trick on me or something. I had to read it twice. I was stunned that it happened then.
I remember that.
And of course, that story never saw the light of day, and we moved on from there. But that won't happen with Doug. Jeff, the guy won a Super Bowl. They're going to give
there's got to be respect.
Yeah,
definitely got to be respect.
Courtesy in this whole situation, no doubt.
And look, I think Doug I think he gets a job. I think he'll get hired again. So I'm not going to feel too awful about it. I think he bounces. But I don't know if he bounces back as a head coach, but I think he gets another job out of this still.
I'm sure the Jets would love to take him.
Yeah, that's really the team I think he goes to is the Jets. I think that's him and Joe Douglas teaming up again. Joe Douglas with the familiarity and having to really have to turn the tide with the Jets. I think that plays a huge role into it. But I think he bounces back in getting a head coaching job at least. But it's just time. The icing's on the cake. They knew. Really, after Chip said that though, he really was the one who put the nail in the coffin on that. That was super smug to do that. That's why Larry's like, get him out of here. Escort him out of the building immediately.
Within 3 hours of him saying that, it was like, doot, Chip Kelly fired. So he couldn't have timed it even any better.
Yeah.
I remember back then, I was thinking, you know what, Chip deserves another year. They went 10-6. Like, this is the only bad losing season. He deserves another year. And people probably think, like, whoever thought that back then is crazy, but you can give Doug a chance and actually give good reasoning now. And I'm like, no, get rid of him. Sorry, get rid of him. He's got to go, man. It's so funny, man. But But Chip's offense died in Philadelphia. His decision making died in Philadelphia. Doug's offense died in Philadelphia. That's the way I look at it. But
Chip was the ultimate gimmick. He was just he was good the first year, and then everybody else just caught up to him.
His offense was a gimmick. It wasn't supposed to sustain in the NFL, and it was proven. He couldn't adjust.
It's me.
He couldn't adjust the system to the NFL. It's just what it is. What it is.
Well, he also tried to treat grown ass men like they're high school kids, and you can't do the things you're doing in college when you don't have as deep a roster. In college you can have endless players, and okay, you know what? You can sit down. You can't do that in the NFL. These are grown men. Big grown men.
I just remember because I'm not sure that you, Ned, would be familiar with this, but my second episode with Eagles Brawl, I interviewed Julian Vondervelde, and he said, I asked him a question. I said, when did you know that the Chip Kelly experiment wasn't going to work? And he said, probably the third day of training camp. I was like, the third day of training camp of 2013? He goes, yeah, because Jason Kelsey had a freaking meltdown and told everybody to stop treating him like he was a child. He's a grown-ass man. And then he stomped off the field and he never came back for the rest of the day. And he goes, that's when I really knew, because that man is never irrational. That's the first time I've seen him irrational, that this might not work. So it's really crazy. It was really true. He really treated grown-ass men like they were little kids, like they were little college kids.
Now,
let's plug.
You go to bed at 9:00. Get your rest.
I wish he panned out simply because he was fun with the media.
He knew how to keep players healthy, man, because the Eagles have not been able to stay healthy.
Oh, yeah, that too. That too.
Bring the smoothies back to NovaCare, please. Get them in these guys' systems. They need something. Oh my God, they're always injured.
Yeah.
So let's do some plugins real quick and end the show, guys, because this has been a great episode. So again, you can find all of Ed's articles and John McMullen's on the Eagles Sports Illustrated Sports Illustrated Mavin on Eagles Mavin page. Ed is killing it with the analysts lately, and John always bringing in his opinionated articles are great reading material. I highly recommend if you want to get away from the hot bait. Why do I always say that? The clickbait era of stuff.
We can call it hot bait.
It is hot bait. It really is.
Hot bait and clickbait. I mean, you're really kind of mixing your.
It's all bait. It's all bait. Yeah, it's all bait. But go check out Ed's stuff. I mean, look, if you just want honest analysts, him and John are perfect for you there. And then Meanie, I'm going to let you go ahead and plug in the Mind of the Meanie, one of my new favorite podcasts.
Well, thank you very much. If you want to listen to everything else I got to say, from pro wrestling, sports, movies, useless knowledge, pro wrestling, I have a podcast that drops every Monday morning at 6 a.m. called Mind of the Meanie. Me and myself and Josh Chernoff host that every Monday morning. If you prefer, listen to your podcast on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/Mind of the Meanie. Also, if you would like to support the Blue Meanie and get some fine Blue Meanie swag, go to prowrestlingtees.com/Blue Meanie. I did really good over the Christmas season with Cameo at cameo.com/Blue Meanie BWO. If you want me to wish you a happy New Year's, I could do that as well. Go over to cameo.com/Blue Meanie BWO.
And as always, you can go to DraftKings.com. Football's almost over, but not as your chance to win money. Eagles Brawl provide this promo all year long. You go to dkng.co/brawlpod. Minimum deposit $5 for your chance to win millions. We credit your account each week with a free entry on DraftKings. That's dkng.co/brawlpod. Also go to manscaped.com. Promo code BRAWL, BRAWL. Send Jeffrey Lurie a nice package so he can finally find his balls and get rid of this awful coaching staff and Howie Roseman. That's promo code BRAWL, BRAWL on manscaped.com. 20% off plus free shipping. Send it to the NovaCare complex so Lurie gets his shape up that he's going to need to fire these guys. Yo, I'm not going to lie. Manscaped reached out to me and said that these are some great promos that I'm doing for to hype them up. They're like, we're loving this calling these guys out for not having balls thing. It's working out pretty well. And I'm like, hey, man, I mean, Phil, thank the Eagles. They make it easy for me.
It's nice segues.
If you're tired of
guys,
if you're tired of your crotch looking like a baby in the beanbag chair, go to Manscaped.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Peace.